Hi, my name is Alvin Angel. Thanks for tuning in for that episode of APTV. Today I got my friend Tim Hobson from Sussan Group. Sussan Group has 460 stores across Australia, across 3 different brands.
Yes.
In most major shopping centers, most retail strips.
Correct.
Safe to say Tim has a pretty good insight as to what's happening in the market as far as rents, turnovers, trends, activities, who's coming, who's going, and where it's headed towards. Tim's going to give us whatever he's allowed to tell us about those insights, and hopefully we can get something out of it. Thank you. Retailers like yourself are constantly highlighting the challenges with your category, fashion. This is not something that's been born out of COVID. You guys have had challenges and have what to complain about for a long, long time. That's what makes you retailers. What are the biggest challenges you're facing now?
Shipping issues and staffing issues. Historically, we've had issues with fashion retail hasn't grown exponentially. It's, with we've got all of our international friends who've come, and the category, from a GLA has grown. You can look at any shopping centre, every development is anchored by fashion. If it's a 10% increase in GLA, I don't think there's many centres out there that have had that reflect in sales. So that's
the same sales are just being
that it might grow 8%, but then it's dissipated amongst an amount of retailers. But at the moment, the current challenge is getting stock into stores and having staff.
How are you overcoming both these challenges?
It's hard. I think being a retailer of choice and making sure your culture is correct in employing is one thing. We're a group made up of 3 different brands. How can we look at the back end and how can we share staff amongst that is another way we're looking. Making sure that what we offer, is relevant in the marketplace. From a shipping point of view, it's hard because you're predominantly dealing with an issue that's out of your control. It's not an issue with manufacturing where you're dealing with the manufacturer, you're getting it to the docks on time, or sometimes there's a delay because of whatever, but it's not making a ship. It's the costs have gone up on that ship. The ship then doesn't come and dock in Sydney, it docks somewhere else. So at all times, you're at an arm's length of it. And I think it's just looking at retail and how we've done it and look at shipping and, building in buffers, which we've already have, but those buffers have to get bigger. And it's a challenge.
So
it's a big
bringing
challenge.
Orders in earlier than you needed them, just in case?
And that's a simple answer, and that's as simple as that it is, but getting to that point where you can do that is extremely hard. From a design point of view, you've got a design team and a production team that are working ahead 6 months, 5 months ahead. To squash that time is extremely hard. You've almost got to drop a month to catch up a month, therefore you're shorting yourself, but you'll catch up in the future. Do you carry larger stock levels? But again, you've still got to get the stock here. So there's simple things that are happening. Even today, I think we've got notification that an extra boat's been put on from overseas to Australia. That's a step in the right direction. It's where we've got to be, but it's having the stock here at a time that you need it.
Can you pass on the increased prices to your customers?
Look, many of our competitors have. We haven't. We're trying not to.
Are there more global brands coming to Australia?
That's a great question for you.
I was hoping you'd revert back to me, because I am an expert.
Is there more coming,
There's always endless. There's all new ones. H&M have 7 brands under their portfolio, and they're gradually coming one at a time. But, it's so fluid and changes all the time. Australia, it was, I don't know if it's about myself, just off the record, Australia was a hot thing. Now it's like a fucking headache to get staff and products. Why would they come here?
Yeah.
And taxes as well.
I agree. And as they fix their current portfolios, their current countries they're in, of course people will start looking for opportunities again. I think it's naive to say.
It's not a priority now.
It's an
opportunity for local brands to reset.
100%, and you've got, we've got this, not only is online, there's the breed of all new online brands that have been born through COVID who are potentially looking for physical stores. So it's definitely slowed. I feel that it's slowed. We're not hearing of many new names coming. And whether there's a relevance, we still don't have the capita here. Yeah. So for the whether it's Zara's got 6 brands. Are they coming? I don't think so. So
shopping centers. You and I have many debates about shopping centers. You've always worked for all the organizations you've worked with in retail. you've always worked on pretty simple formulas. So a retailer in a certain category can afford to pay an occupancy cost. Can you take me through what that looks like?
First and foremost, it's not. It's got to be worked out on what sales
Correct.
do you think you're gonna do, and then there's always going to be an argument on occupancy costs from a retail perspective.
If a shop is about 150 to 200 square meters, anywhere, forget inner city or regional or sub-regional, what is a benchmark sales a fashion retailer should be looking at to consider that a okay trading store?
It's an understanding of what's okay. There's too left and right. I think a store of 200 square meters should still be able to achieve sales on average, let's say, of $7,000 and above to $10,000.
So anything under 7,000 is really in trouble.
And then you've got to overlay that. Where is it? So $7,000 in Chadstone or in pre-COVID Melbourne Central or the city is probably not going to cut it, or in a city location
Because the rents are higher.
Because the rent's in a Bondi. In your higher centres that are platinum centres, probably not going to cut it, because the chances are your portfolio then is not going to resemble a balanced of circa 10,000 a square metre. Your high being high and your lows being lows.
So let's say you're a 200 metre store and you're doing $10,000 a metre, so you're doing $2 million in business. What rental can you afford to pay on that per square metre?
Again, it's.
Come on, tell us what you really think.
No. Well, you could be, if you're doing $2 million in a street location, is going to be different to $2 million.
But your occupancy will be the same.
In a city.
Your percentage of rent won't change.
But you're not going to pay a high rent if you can pay a $800 a square metre and get a $2 million sales return. That's different to what you can pay in a Melbourne Central or an Emporium or somewhere else.
It's about 10 to 15% occupancy.
15% occupancy should be at the average of where you sit on a portfolio.
So 150 grand.
150
for a $2 million store. These are the generic, basically, formulas for retail. Generic, yes, there's always exceptions, flagships, bigger, inner city. You're in a 200 square meter store doing $10,000 a meter, so that's $2 million of business. Yep. What occupancy costs can you afford to pay towards rent?
Look, it should be anywhere from that 12 to 15%.
So about 300 grand-ish.
At the top end.
So $2 million of business will cost you about $300,000 of...
Yeah, at the higher end. And you know, if it's like, and there's no guarantees. You do it one year, you don't do it the next year.
But on average, over a lease term?
Yeah, on average over a lease term.
And average lease terms you do now is 5 or 7 years?
5 years, yeah.
And fit-out costs?
It's a pie-in-the-sky number at the moment. Unfortunately, there's no... What you pay today is not going to be what you pay tomorrow. What availability is today is not going to be what the availability is tomorrow. I think what we're seeing with building is that people are substituting materials around what is available.
What's the most creative ideas you've seen yet?
Platypus have done a new store in Southland using cable trays. So the main material is a cable tray, and they're displaying shoes on it, they're displaying hats on it, and it's a readily available. You know, every office would have it. You go, it's readily available. I think that's probably a very clever idea, probably cost effective as well. Very unique, very smart, because I don't think it can be copied, because someone's going to say, well, they've already done it, because everyone knows it as a cable tray. And
all these staffing issues, fit-out costs, is that giving online sales more of a kickstart?
Yes and no, because I think online's going up as well. The cost of doing business online, that
staffing
to shipping costs. We have issues with getting, a train line goes down to Perth, shipping cost goes up. The consumer buys globally, they don't care, they don't know, they don't understand what's going on in your little world, and so it's actually cost more. You might have a distribution centre or an online fulfilment centre where you've got to run 3 shifts because of COVID and to be compliant, and all of a sudden you're paying an increase to get that stock out. The cost increase is everywhere across the board, and I think that's very well documented with pure plays.
So you have a laundry list of challenges in retail, right? And they're readily available and they can be used where necessary. But where is the opportunity in all this?
I think
and where's it going?
You've still got to have, as retailers, rightly or wrongly, where we take a long approach. We're not short-sighted, and you could argue we do 5-year lease, 7-year leases, 10-year leases, so we're not short-sighted. I think it's about having not losing sight of what the long-term goal is, reacting and dealing with the short-term issues now, and let's hope shipping and staffing is short-term. Staffing, while shipping will hopefully change, and we're still hearing it could be 18 months, 24 months. Being more creative with staffing, I think, we'll get on top of that as the borders open, as we get international students, as everything starts moving again. It will change. I think a lot of people who saw retail as an option or a career path, whether that's casually, part-time, full-time, there's been other options that have had guaranteed rather than the stop-start of the last 2 years. But I think that'll come back. But realistically, I think you've got to have your plan, look long-term, plan for long-term, and still deliver something that exceeds the customer's expectation. And if you can do that, there's always going to be customers out there who are looking.
In the last few shops you leased, what did or didn't the landlord do to help you get over the line? And what do you expect from landlords and agents like myself when looking at properties?
I think first and foremost, it's understanding your customer. So if someone's coming to you, whether it's an agent, whether it's someone who works directly for a landlord, they can't just be offering space. They've got to have an understanding of your customer, why that's going to work, why it's the right space for you.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the most important, because anyone can pick up a phone and I guess if you make 300 phone calls, someone will eventually say yes. For me, it's about working with people, like I said, who understand retail, understand the brands, and ring up and say, hey, you've got a store here and here and here. Your customer is here. This is why your customer's here. This is where she's shopping. This is where she's eating. This is where she's drinking. She's getting her nails. Just fully understanding that space of your customer and giving you a compelling argument to come here. That's different in a city prime location, of course. Yeah. And I think then it's, if you're actively looking, it's a different proposition if you're looking between A and B, a certain point, Bourke Street Mall or wherever. But in general, I think, as a landlord representative, whether as an agent or working direct from the landlord, understanding brands and understanding that strip, that section, that run of the mall is imperative. It's speaking to someone who shows they've done their research on your brand. I think for me, and everyone's different, that conversation or that interest is peaked or lost straight away.
Sure.
We tend to know where we want to be, where we should be. I don't think there's too many people who profess to know everything, yourself excluded. No, but we're there to be educated, but it's got to be the right information.
Where can they get that insight into your brands? Is that readily available online?
I think it's online where our brands actually are. Again, different for a Vicinity or a Centre Group who have a lot of information already on us. They know we've got X amount of stores. They know the good. They know the where we work, and therefore demographically they can say, well, this centre's close to this. You've got the same adjacencies, and this is why it'll work. I think that's one thing that works well for them, where they have an advantage.